Okay, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another fun Seiko review for you guys. A little bit about the brand. They were founded back in 1881. They are Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end. And in terms of the type of watch, I'd consider this, I think, and you would too, a dive watch. Some key common characteristics and design language when you're looking for a diver. Of course, you're going to want water resistance through some type of screw down crown. You're going to want something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if offered on bracelet. This is the Seiko Prospex SPB257 Capt. Willard Black Series Turtle limited edition, and it's limited to 5,500 units. This is on loan in from Belmont Watches out in San Diego. So although I may want every Seiko, at least now I don't have to commit to buying every single Seiko to show you guys, and also for me to personally get a hands-on with some of the ones that maybe I wouldn't normally. And this is one, just the Capt. Willard silhouette in general is one that, you know, for me, I guess kind of paled in comparison to the 62 Moss reissue and the Marine Master 200 reduced. So it was really actually enlightening for me to get this in hand, because as much as I love the Slim Turtle I just picked up, I mean, there is something really, really special about this asymmetric K-shape that has those really great crown guards built in. So a little bit about this model. It's basically a modern reinterpretation of Seiko's classic 6105-8110 Heritage Turtle from 1970, which was famously worn by Martin Sheen's character Captain Willard in the Vietnam War film Apocalypse Now. This goes for $1,300 MSRP from Seiko, but definitely check the links for pricing and availability at Belmont Watches in San Diego. They actually sent this over to me. Well, we met up, and I picked this one up before they even got to take pictures of it and do a listing. So chances are, for those of you who are watching it sooner rather than later, there's not even a listing up for it yet. But if you really got to have it, you can give them a call, find out what the special pricing is, and figure it out if you wanted to purchase it. And honestly, this is a really cool one. I'm glad that I was able to get my hands on it so I get experience with, one, this case shape, the famous Capt. Willard case shape, two, this really cool NATO style strap, which is actually really, really interesting, and they're very expensive. Like if you were to try to buy them aftermarket, they're something like upwards of $160, like, and up to, I want to say, like 200 plus. So I did want to see what the fuss was about for these straps as well. But with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, again, big shout out to Belmont Watches out in San Diego. So although they do, you know, used consignments and everything like that, they still also do stuff like this, box and papers, even get them from ADs, and they'll have, you know, the warranty cards in here and everything. So very, very cool from that aspect. And again, another great thing is, especially in this time within Seiko's kind of career, where you're worried about things like bezel alignment, the nice thing is when you're purchasing something from Belmont is that they're going to take pictures of the actual unit. They're not going to just have a stock photo. So if in terms of like things lining up, you can see right now that lines up pretty darn good. So there's a little bit of play there, but enough to where you can make it line up absolutely perfectly. And then of course, depending on the angle, there can always be a little bit of distortion and eye trickery. But I will say that this, if I was to unbox this and I purchased it, I'd be happy with the alignment. So maybe you guys would too, because I can be a big stickler. Now in terms of the dimensions, you're getting 42.5 millimeters across from basically this point to that point. You're not going to want to count, of course, the crown guards. But this, from here to here at 42.5, I don't know why, but in my mind, I imagined it would be bigger, but it's really not. It wears much smaller, and a lot of it has to do with, of course, it's smaller when you look at it from this point of view. So it's 42.5, 13.7 thick, which actually somehow wears very thin, but you know, typical Seiko fashion. Plus it's blacked out, so a lot of it is hidden in terms of the thickness. And then, oh yeah, also that 13.7 is including the crystal, which typically I don't think most places will actually list that thickness, including Seiko. So, and then lug to lug is 46 millimeters, another thing that helps it wear a lot smaller. And then also because it's so wide and rounded and this circular kind of saucer style, again, that also helps visually shrink this piece down on your wrist. So it's stainless steel, which has a brushed and polished finishing with a black hard coating on it. The sapphire is a single dome with this nice chamfered edge along the outer portion, and it does have inner anti-reflective coating. The bezel is unidirectional and rotating, and you get 120 clicks. Nice and tactile. So the coating doesn't get in the way of the smoothness, so much appreciated there. Bam, look at that, back to center. So very nice. In typical Seiko fashion, it's going to be really kind of that mixture of smooth and clicky. Not super clicky, but honestly, super clicky ones can be actually kind of rough and kind of obtrusive within the experience. So having a level of smoothness but still being able to feel those tactile clicks for me is a little bit more ideal versus some things that can be a little bit too clicky, you know, snappy, and ultimately kind of gritty by comparison. So I do enjoy the Seiko, you know, the modern Seiko, I should say, the bezel action. I'd say some of the older ones feel a little bit more hollow, a little bit tinny, and a little bit maybe overly smooth and less clicky. I think they found a really good median with what they have here today. Now, in terms of the crown, it is screw down and unsigned, as you can see, which is pretty typical within the Prospex line, especially considering a lot of them are going to have screw down crowns, and you know, why give yourself one more thing to not have lined up? So not a big deal there. And honestly, when I think screw down crowns, or when I think signed crowns, I really think of dress watches, where that's going to be a bigger factor. I mean, there being an S on here for me, I mean, does that really add value for you? I mean, I guess it's something to complain about if it's not there, but I don't think it's anything that would really excite too many people. Now, in terms of the movement that's inside here, it's a Seiko 6R35. I've had pretty good experience with the 6R35 out of all the 6R35s that I've purchased. I've had only one that was running really slow. And first it was running fast, it was magnetized, I demagnetized it, and then it started running really slow. So I just popped open the case back and did the fine adjustment on it, and now it's running, you know, +3 a day. So can't be mad at that. That's another nice thing about these movements, is that they're easy to adjust. You can easily do that with your home tools. You cannot do that with a Powermatic 80 movement. So that's something, right? So, and then, yeah, chances are you won't have to do that. Again, I didn't have to do that with any of them except for one out of maybe 10. So, and that was my luck, and I'm somebody who buys a lot of watches, and has a lot in general. So take it for what you will. These are, you know, pretty much unregulated. So there's a wide array in terms of the variants that they could have, but they're normally a lot better than what's listed in terms of that window. So you're getting 70 hours of power reserve, which is great, versus the 6R15's power reserve, which had a 50-hour power reserve, or if you go down to the 4R series, which is going to be something like a 40-hour power reserve. It has a 3 hertz sweep, which is 21,600 vibrations per hour, or 6 ticks per second versus 8 ticks at 4 hertz. And then this has a -15 to +25 seconds per day accuracy. So that's the standard. So if you were losing that much, that would be really annoying. And if you're gaining that much, that would be pretty annoying too. But chances are you're probably gaining anywhere from 5 to 10 a day. And if you're gaining that much, it's really easy for you to just hack the seconds, let the time catch up, and you'd be good to go. Honestly, I'd rather have a watch run, you know, 5 seconds fast versus 1 second slow, because resetting to make it run, to set it for 1 second, I'm gonna have to wait a whole minute almost for the seconds hand to come back around. So I'm not looking, you know, that's not how I roll. But that's just my personal preference. Also, you're getting more jewels, 24 jewels versus 23 jewels in the 6R15. And yeah, I know a lot of people kind of complain about these movements, but they've been pretty good to me and good to a lot of other folks too. But you know what? Happy people don't talk a lot. They don't complain a lot. They don't go onto every YouTube video and every Facebook group and every forum to post about how much it does what they thought it would do. It's pretty much the other way around, right? So if you're not happy with it, then those guys put a lot of energy into letting the whole world know. In terms of the case back, let's go ahead and get it off the little pillow here. And yeah, check out this strap, guys. This thing is nice. It's a high intensity Japanese made Seiko strap with blacked out hardware. And this thing is cool, man. I've seen these straps. Some places are actually selling them. They're the OEM ones. And you can see the little sign. That's so cool. Check that out. I dig that. And then also another thing to notice is you get a smaller keeper here versus a larger there, because it's meant to go in and then out and fold in versus it just going back in and folding. So they really re-engineered this piece too. Then you can see you still get the sticker there. I'm not going to pull that off or anything, but it's a solid case back, really well done, just like you would expect from Seiko. And you can see that pulled really smoothly. So that's even with these fat spring bars. So it's, you know, this thing's pretty cool. I gotta say, it makes me honestly like interested to have one of these rollers. Maybe not this one, because I'm not really into black coating, but if I was, this one would be pretty perfect because it has the orange, like the black and orange. I put it on this black strap. As a Giants fan, this would be the ultimate wear it to a Giants game. San Francisco Giants baseball, guys, baseball. Black and orange, that's just a killer combination. The Lume, I will say also, it does have a little bit of a tinge to it. So it's not as white as your typical Lume Bright. It's not, I wouldn't say it's patinaed, but it does have, again, just a little bit of warmth added to it. And I think it's to help with the stark contrast. And you can actually see the dial, which I thought was going to be a matte black dial, actually has like a bit of a kind of very faint, fine kind of sun ray to it. I mean, it's still matte across the top portion of the dial, but there's some type of under, I don't know, maybe it's not a sun ray effect, but there's something within the texture on this dial that make it, look at that, look at the way it plays with light. We'll see when we get into the light transition and everything like that. But with all that said, actually, you know what? We haven't got it on wrist yet. Let's, you know, since this is fabric strap, I'll go ahead and fasten it on the wrist and then show you guys. Actually, you know what? I was going to cut away for that, but why not just do it here like this so I can show you that they did kind of rethink this out with a pretty cool remix here on the way they do the strap. So you're going to go ahead and secure it. It's going to go through one end, right? It's going to come out here. Now, because that's thinner, it's going to go back down. This piece is the sliding keeper now. So you scoot the sliding keeper up. It's also taller, as you can see by comparison. So when that goes in, this comes up and it just locks it in. So very tidy, actually. And I'm very picky when it comes to NATO, nylon, you know, those style straps, just because I have a larger wrist. So if I don't get enough, if I don't get a long enough strap, then I'm not going to be able to have enough, you know, to tuck back in, which is really annoying. But this actually wears really, really cool. I dig that. And it is thicker, so you are going to get some height that's going to be added. But yeah, I think it's a really good look, and it's obviously very comfortable, feels very premium. You can see, although it does add a little bit underneath the watch, it really exemplifies the ergonomics here. It's basically floating on top there. There's just not a lot of contact, which means ultimately you're going to get a better range of motion, and you're going to forget about this nice chunky mechanical watch on your wrist, which is pretty cool that it can actually do that thanks to those ergonomic features. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, get into some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Let's go into the lights here. Oh, check that out. Oh man, I didn't turn out the light in the back there. Let me go ahead and hit that light. Boom. Darkness falls. I had no idea that you were actually going to get a little extra play. So, interestingly enough, that slightly tinted Lume actually has more of a bluish tint to it. And then the Lume Pip has more of your traditional green tone. And then you get the Minutes Hand, which is this cool, vibrant highlighter orange. So this is probably one of the cooler, more playful loomed Seikos that I've seen, and it makes sense as this, you know, kind of special edition blackout style. So very, very cool. And yeah, something that you would normally expect from an independent micro brand or something. So very cool to see Seiko get into that, especially because we know how good their compounds are. But one thing I like to do when it comes to these Lume shots is work in some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a room enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just, you know, maybe spending some time under the shade of a tree. Oh, look at that. See, there is a little underlying, you see that? There's a bit of an underlying, slightly chocolatey little sunray effect. Very cool. Which you normally wouldn't have even noticed in any other lighting situation. So yeah, I do like to see how these colors render, the textures, all that. Oh, there's that little thumbprint I left on there. Am I gonna... are we going to operate right now? Check this out. I'm going to set that down. I'm going to find myself a nice little wipe. And I'm going to wipe that just for you guys. Okay, check it out. And we're back in business. Look at that dial. I'm glad I wiped it off because now it looks even better. So very, very cool, guys. So you can see the way the textures, the colors, even when it comes down to how evenly the light just glides and plays on the hardware, the brushing. It's really cool. I gotta say, it looks very black a lot of times. I think what's most interesting is how it renders when it actually captures and holds on to and reflects a bit of light, because then you actually get to see some finishing underneath that black coat, and also tying into that dial, which has that nice little touch of warmth, which actually does make a little bit more sense now with that dark brown strap. I was kind of wondering, like, why didn't they just do a black strap? But now I guess it makes a little bit more sense, because there's a bit of a kind of chocolatey or coffee-like feature to that. And then look at the Lume. Look at that. Very cool. I dig that. Wasn't expecting it, but I like what I found. And you guys saw in terms of on the wrist how it wears, really great wearing, very balanced feel. You know, it has that sizing sweet spot where it's not too big or too small. And again, it's because of proportions. You're getting a smaller dial, you're getting a smaller bezel width. And then, yeah, there's some body that's there, but it's relatively short lug to lug. And then because it's more rounded, again, that's going to visually shrink things down even more. And then you also do have things that are physically shrinking down thanks to those undercuts on the case. What are those? Are those little pieces of dust? Let me get those. Oh, are they? Oh, you know what it was? I wiped the dust in when I came with the little microfiber. So now I'm going to have to wipe it off now before we get into these closing thoughts. There we go. Back to action. So you've seen how it wears on this really cool high intensity Japanese Seiko fabric strap with a black dot hardware. It also comes with the standard black silicone dive strap that has that texturing to it. That's probably how I'd wear it. If not, I would probably just get a Tropic rubber strap, and I think that'd look great too, or even like a modern, like a Hirsch Pure, if I wanted to go away from the you know, more vintage style aesthetic. So that black silicone strap tapers from 20 down to 18. You do have that stainless steel tang with the signed keeper, but it's also all blacked out in terms of the hardware. And then, you know, in terms of model variants, there's also, in terms within this black edition, you kind of get the 62 Max version of it, as well as the Marine Master Reduced case version of this. So it's going to have the exact same color blocking, and, you know, give you a similar package in terms of the straps and everything that come along with it. Or if you want to just go Captain Willard, then yeah, there's a bunch of different variations of that, to include a lot of cool textury dials. In terms of comparable models, you know, while Seiko isn't the clear kind of value king that it used to be, this kind of reimagining of a historical skin diver is still very competitive, both against its Asian-produced and micro-brand competition, as well as its mainstream Swiss-made counterparts. Like, I think it still offers a lot, and, you know, there's a lot of fun. And that's the thing I like about Seiko, it gives you so many different options, right? You can get something vintage, get something modern, you can get something that's a little both modern and vintage, you get something that has funky colors. So I think that's cool, and that's why I keep finding myself drawn back to Seiko. So for me, guys, bottom line, this is a really fun blacked out edition with a splash of color that makes it really feel special. It's not just some blacked out like Seiko mod special. This definitely has just that extra punch to it, in terms of the theme and the way that it's been thought out and executed. So I dig it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.